In Boston's South End, there's enough history and change for a whole shelf full of books. It's also a home for writers, whether in the present or in the past. All of those ingredients will come into play once again November 18th in this year's South End Authors Book Festival. To tell us about the event are two of the authors and committee members for the festival, Alison, Barnet, and Charlie Caizzi. Thank you both very much for being with us.
Thank you for having us, Chris.
I will start with Alison. What exactly do you mean by a South End author?
Well, I think in many ways we shouldn't have called it Authors Book Festival because it's people who have authored books who live in the South End, but people who don't live in the South End, but they wrote about the South End, or just people who write. It's really open to everybody.
And I guess meaning, right, you don't have to have something that's out there published.
No, you don't. You could be working on something. A number of people are doing that. Or they have little, brochures kind of thing that aren't published.
Charlie, you are a South End native, but you haven't lived there for a while. So first of all, what's this like for you, going to an event like this and finding yourself in the old neighborhood, but it's now different?
It's like coming home still. I mean, I see the buildings that are up there, but I also see the old buildings that used to be there. I get lost quite often, that I would never get lost before, because it's changed so very, very much. But the warmth is still there. The camaraderie is still there a lot. And certain spots it's not. I just see, the street people that used to be there, they're there now in droves, even more than they were before, actually. And yeah, I get the old feeling when I come back and see it all the time. It's just a wonderful place to still be in. I see some of the old buildings, some of the old gargoyles on the building, some of the architecture that's still there. Those are the ones I focus on and really like and enjoy.
Alison, you're the flip side of this because you're not originally from the South End,
No.
but you moved there. You've been there for a while.
53 years, Chris.
What made it so absorbing for you?
Back in the day? Well, it was just an incredible neighborhood. I mean, just take my block. I knew everybody. Everybody knew me. We had block parties. We had a food co-op. We were all mixed there. And now it's boring.
I want to come back to Charlie because when I see those paintings by Alan Rohan Crite, some of which I'm sure were from the South End, I see people in the street, kids playing, people sitting on the steps, looking out the window. I mean, was it like that when you were growing up there?
Very, very, very much so. Absolutely. I mean, when it got dark and it was really warm, I remember the summer more than any other time because everybody would be out in the streets. There wasn't air conditioning. We didn't even have fans. We had to go out in the street and enjoy it. And you could stay up all hours. Nobody ever said you had a time to go to bed. We fell asleep on the floor. They'd walk by and give you a nudge and say, "I think it's time you went," and that was about it. And yeah, the streets were full with kids and people all the time. And I remember the summer more because of that, because it went late into the evenings a lot, which was wonderful. And I loved it.
We just had Halloween. Nobody came. I don't think they came last year either. We don't have children. We have little babies in their strollers, but we don't have children that would walk up the steps and ring the bell.
Well, talk about some of the different kinds of things going to be coming into play in this book festival, Alison, because starting with the history, there's going to be some very visual history that one of the authors taking part is working on with a collection of postcards, I understand.
Oh, right, the postcard book, right. That's a series. I think it's Arcadia publisher, or maybe it's merged with something else now. They offer you, if you have enough postcards, you can do one of these books through them. I wanted to do one, but I didn't have enough postcards.
And you also have another author who wrote a book about, I guess, maybe the highway project that never happened and which became the Southwest
People Before
Corridor.
Highways, Carolyn Crockett, right? I'm very anxious to see that one.
And Charlie, you have a new book that's coming out, and this is about someone that you first knew when you were growing up, and you had a long-time friendship?
No, I'll brief it as much as I can because I could go on and I won't do that to you. In 1967, I wrote a play, and there was a character in that play I could not fill out of 14, 15. 6 weeks before the play, someone said, "I know somebody that can fill that part." I wanted a Jonathan Winters type who could dress like a woman and a feisty old lady. And we went over to the ballpark, and he pointed him out. I went over to him. I told him who I was. He said, I ain't got time for that. I said, "Well, just read the script. I live right across the street." And when I went over there, my phone number was on the front. 2 hours later, the phone rang. My wife came out and said, somebody on, please, can I stay on the phone? And all I heard was, I'll do it. I want it. I need that part. Don't give it to anybody else but me. And I said, he's the guy. And he pulled it off beautifully. And from 1967 until 2013, we were the best of friends for 48 years. And that's what the book is about. The escapades in between, the fun we had together. And everybody got a story to write. And this one just seemed right to do at this time with him. So.
Alison, how do you know when you've got a story?
I don't know, there's so many of them. Do you know who Jack Gantos is?
I've heard the name, but I don't
He's
remember.
a South End author. He writes children's books, but his last book was How You Write a Story. I mean, where do you find your ideas? And, you know, it's just all over the place. Just start.
I mean, you found people, you know, especially that you've written about in profiles in the South End News, and people,
Right.
you know, at businesses or, you know, a lunch
Right.
place
Right.
or somebody with a dog.
Yeah, I miss doing that because I have lots of ideas. But the South End News is like nothing now.
Charlie, what about you? How did you start writing?
I like a good title, like a good ending, and I can fill the middle in after that. It's a funny thing, but that's true.
Right.
That's how I do
Right.
it. When I know where I'm going to go and it's going to end, and that's why when people say they write and they don't know how it's going to end, I don't understand that. For me, I can never do that because everybody's different, of course. But I need that, and once I get that, and I know it's going to be a book full enough to do it, then I just go ahead and start writing, and it comes naturally after that. But it's easier for me, Chris, and everybody, I think, if you've lived it. If I had to make up a story, and I have, it's okay. You can go wherever you want to go. But when you've lived it, you live it again in your head as you're writing it. And it's easy for me to write it that way because that's what I did. And it's pleasant to write that way. It brings all the memories right back.
I mean, the
right.
things you write, some of them are very vivid. You know, like your mother telling your father he's not dressed up enough. He looks like a slob.
You remembered that.
Then
Very
she
good.
says, when you were young, you didn't look that way.
Yeah, that's right. That's the truth. That's exactly how she said it. And he never took offense to it, which was amazing to me. He just said, yeah, right, whatever. He let it go. He was a great guy, by the way. And it was a pleasure for me, since you mentioned him, that I never realized how much he was involved in my life till I read this book. I said, wait a minute, he got me out of that jam. He got me out of this jam. He got me out of that one. Those little things you read in the book that I got in that book, that he actually did. And it lit up a bulb for me to say he was more in my life than I really thought he was.
Alison, what's also interesting, I think, is that even though you are a transplant to the South End, you actually have some South End ancestry, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Tell us a little bit
My
about that.
great-grandfather lived in the South End in 1862. He was born in New York, but his father died, so his aunt and uncle brought him to the South End in 1862. Yeah, and he
Now,
was there for 20 years or so.
Now, we should also mention this event this year, the festival, is going to be happening in a different location. And
Right.
this is also sort of rich in South End history, even though
That's
not
for
from the
sure.
19th century.
Right, right.
Tell us a little bit about the
It'll
setting.
be at Tent City at the Harry Dow Room. And there's history there. Who was Harry Dow? He was a key figure in the South End. He was a lawyer, and he was involved in all kinds of urban renewal and community groups. So, and the room is a beautiful room, a big, beautiful room.
And it's
So-
very accessible, which is nice, right across from
Yeah.
the Back Bay Station.
Right,
People can get there.
right,
Parking is
right.
right next door, the parking garage. And as Alison said, it's a nice
Yeah.
room to be in, a
You
nice
go
place
in-
to go.
You go in the front door, and there's a security desk or something, and you go around, and there you are.
Yeah. But by the way, when you go to an event like this, does this
Yeah.
motivate you in some way about getting more things done in your work, anything like that?
It is a lot of work. I think this is what I do at those festivals, right? I'm jumping up and helping somebody or suggesting that somebody move over there or,
And I'm watching her books while she does
And,
all
yeah,
that,
he
does all
watches
this
the
and gets it
books.
over with. So,
It's work. It's work.
but if it's fun, it's work, but it doesn't feel like work because you're looking forward to it, and it's an enjoyable night for both us as
yeah.
authors there, meeting those people, and for them coming in the door and meeting with the office. We have an
Especially-
awful lot of conversations as we go along with
Right,
many,
especially
many
when
people.
you put the bottles of wine over there.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and we should mention one of the other players here helping you out with this is another South End author,
Yes.
Mel King.
Mel King. Well, you know, actually, this whole book festival idea was his 3 years ago, 4 years ago, or whenever it was. Yeah, no, he's a very key person here.
Well, so was Alison, though. She's not giving herself any credit at all. Mel was the one. Mel was one who said it to her, but
Yeah,
she
yeah.
took it from there.
Right.
from
He
that
asked me
point.
what I thought, and
yeah.
we just did it.
And I will briefly mention the Russ Lopez book, which is
Yes.
another new item that's going to be, I'm sure, part of this.
Right.
Alison, just to make sure people get there and know exactly what's the location, the time they should look for on the 18th of November?
It's a Saturday, which we think should help bring more people in. It's 130 Dartmouth Street, the main entrance of the Tent City housing complex.
Well, thank you
And
both. Oh, go
did
ahead.
I s-
And it's 2 to 5.
2 to 5, right.
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 Thank you both very much. Alison Barnet and Charlie Caizzi from the South End Authors Book Festival.
Pleasure again. Thank you very much, Chris.
We
Thank
hope that
you.
you'll come.